What's up, kings and queens? It's Dan from Daft Previews, back once again for another comprehensive preview on this upcoming 5-game slate. We had another profitable day, and it was saved by an Anthony Davis assist ladder. So stick around for the recap at the end of this video. I'll go through all the winning picks, why I chose them. I'll also go through the ones that lost, and I'll talk you through what I learned from those L's. You guys really love the detail of the last two videos. So in this preview, I'll be sharing the players who have the best matchups. We'll go through the players with the worst matchups. And if the star players don't have either of those, I'm going to go through them too. So we'll get full insights, full analysis on all your favorite players so that when it comes to betting this next set of games, you're armed with everything that you need. As always, I'll be sharing my screen. I'll take you through all of these props. I use props.cash to sort through all of this data, and I've got a discount code for all of my viewers. So sign up today and you'll get 25% off your first month. Use the code DAFT25 when you sign up. Now let's go. First, we're jumping into the Washington Wizards versus New York Knicks. Now, Jalen Brunson is a game time decision, so there's limited markets on the Knicks players at the moment. Let's start with Jalen Brunson because he does have a great matchup in this one. And you'd be looking at his assist prop. So over 7.5 assists for Jalen Brunson. The Washington Wizards allow the second most assists to point guards over their last 15 games. We can see here he's covered this in 5 of his last 10, averaging 8 assists per game. In 6 head-to-head matchups with the Washington Wizards, he's covered this 4 times, averaging 7.3 assists per game. He's played them twice so far this year. He's finished on 7 and 8, so the line does look about right. But at the same time, this matchup is great. If you're looking at same-game parlays, 6 assists for Jalen Brunson, I'd eat that up. I'm telling you now. He's covered the 6 assist line in 9 of his last 10 games. Only one he went under was against the Philadelphia 76ers. Moving into the Washington Wizards players, we've got Jordan Poole, and we're looking at his points prop, but we're looking at an under, 16.5 points. The Knicks allow the second fewest points to shooting guards over their last 15. Now, Poole, in his last 10, he's only covered this 3 times, averaging 14. But in his last 5 games, he's covered this 3 times, averaging almost 20 points. So his recent form is actually very good. In 4 head-to-head matchups against them, he's covered this once in 4 games. In the 2 games he's played the Knicks this year, he finished at 8 points and 10 points. So I don't have a play on this right now, but if I did have to take it, it definitely would be the under on Jordan Poole's points. Next player is Denny Advia. He's a small forward from the Washington Wizards. Now, the Knicks, they allow the 4th most assists to small forwards over the last 15. We can see here he's covered it in 3 of his last 6 games against the Knicks, 1 of 2 so far this season. In his last 10 games, though, he's only covered it 3 times, averaging 4.1 assists. So the data's not real strong. The odds are also quite juiced as well. So, yeah, look, not one that I'm willing to play, to be honest. So Denny, staying away from him. Our next one, I haven't touched this guy since he burnt me about a week ago, but it's Kyle Kuzma. But we're looking at it under here. So given my hatred for Kyle Kuzma, it might be something that I look at, but his recent form does scare me a little bit. So you'd be looking at under 6.5 rebounds. The Knicks allow the second fewest rebounds to power forwards. He's covered in 5 of his last 10, but he's covered in 3 of his last 5. He's averaging 8.4 rebounds. Looking in the head-to-head matchups, he's played them 5 times. He's averaging 6.2 rebounds, but he's gone well under in his last 3. These last 2 games were both this season. He finished with 4 rebounds and 2 rebounds. So heavy lean on the under, but Kyle Kuzma's known to hurt me. So may not touch that game or him at all. Heading into the Bulls versus the Raptors. The first player we're talking through is Emmanuel Quickley. And we're looking at under 4.5 rebounds. The Bulls allow the 4th fewest rebounds to point guards. He's gone under this in 3 straight games against the Bulls, but he's in a new town, new city, new role, more responsibilities. So looking at his last 10, he's actually been rebounding quite well. His first game for the Raptors was this game here up against Cleveland. So he's covered in 6 of 9 games in a Raptors uniform, this 4.5 rebounds line. Yeah, look, a difficult one. The data's contradicting at the moment. I would lean to the over given how he's playing. Because when it comes to rebounds and point guards, some of them don't rebound at all. So that can be a bit misleading to say that the Bulls allow the 4th fewest, because that really depends on who they've played against. So I'd lean to the over on Emmanuel Quickley, but the matchup says that it's going to be difficult for him. Another one, and it's a very similar point of view, to be honest. It's for RJ Barrett, and we're looking at his points line. So firstly, the Bulls, they allow the least amount of points to small forwards. So that would indicate take the under 20.5 points. But also, this data is factored into the line. So even though RJ Barrett has covered this line, he's scored 20 plus pretty easily in 5 of his last 6 games. The line still sits at 20.5 points. Looking at how he's gone against them in the past, look at this: 3 consecutive games he's covered this line against the Chicago Bulls, and this is when he was on the New York Knicks, where he took less shots and had less opportunities. I'd personally take his over in this one if I had to, but I haven't taken the time to just focus in on RJ Barrett and what's happening with the Raptors. Before I really take a Raptors play, I think I would need to look to see how they played in that last game without Siakam, what's actually different. But right now, very strong indicator for me to take his over. I would disregard the fact that the Bulls allow the least points to small forwards, and I'd still take him. Someone else that we'd be looking at in this one is Scotty Barnes. I think he's a power forward now, and I think that's where he's going to stay now that Pascal is gone. But we'd be looking at his point and his assist prop, but we're looking at an under in this one, and that's because the Bulls allow the 5th least points and the 7th least assists to power forwards. Scotty's covered this in 5 of his last 10, averaging 22.5. In 6 matchups against the Chicago Bulls, he's gone under in 5 of them. He's played them twice this year, went over the first time and went under the next time. So I would lean to the under on this one. Scotty Barnes is known to fill up the stat sheet, though, but at the same time, with Quickly and Barrett there, they probably have more weapons. Quickly can get the assist. RJ Barrett can clearly get the points. So Scotty probably doesn't need to do too much, which is good for me because his rebound prop is another play. But that's because the Bulls allow the 3rd most rebounds to power forward. So the Bulls are going to be starting DeMar DeRozan at power forward. So Scotty's going to have a significant size advantage. His history against the Bulls says he's going to go over. Look at that. He's covered in 5 of his last 6, averaging 9 rebounds against the Chicago Bulls. His form in his last 10, it's quite average, though. He's covered in 2 of his last 10, averaging 5.4 rebounds per game. He has had some difficult matchups. He has spent a lot of time at point guard, shooting guard, small forward. He's been bouncing around a lot until this new rotation is set. But given the way that it looks like the Raptors want to play, he's going to be spending a lot more time as a power forward in this one. If they go small ball, he might even play time at center. So I do like his rebound prop for this. I'll let you know that I do have a value play on Scotty Barnes. Pretty much, because I'm not going to share it in detail in this video, but it will be in the Discord. I'm looking at under in his points, 10 rebounds, and 3 assists. That's what I've already got plugged in, but I'm not going to go into too much detail in this video because I am tired as hell. But another player for you is Kobe White from the Chicago Bulls. And we'd be looking at his assist prop here, and that's because the Toronto Raptors allow the 4th most assists to point guards. You can see that he's perfectly capable of it. He's gone under in his last 2. So 5 of his last 10 he's covered. In head-to-head matchups against the Raptors, he's covered this in 3 of 4. I think the biggest thing you've got to consider in this is that Zach LaVine is back. So one thing, he had this massive peak in his form with Zach LaVine out of the lineup. Now that Zach LaVine is back, be interested to see how he performs. So these are his numbers with Zach LaVine. So he had a hot streak here. But when it comes to assist to point guards, obviously the Hornets will leak quite a few. The Warriors would leak a few. Houston, not so much. So that was a really standout game. The Spurs give up a lot of assist to point guards, and so do the Cavs. So he has had some easier matchups where he's failed to go over. You'd have to watch to see how they're playing to figure out what's happening there. What do his potential assists look like? But in terms of the matchup is good there for Kobe White. The next one is Zach LaVine, and we're looking at his points line. And we're looking at it over 19.5 points. So the Raptors allow the 5th most points to small forwards. The Chicago Bulls, I guess they're playing small on the wings. Zach's the 3, DeRozan's the 4, Caruso's the 2. So Zach LaVine at small forward, the matchup indicates an over. But looking at his form, I wouldn't bet on Zach LaVine right now, to be honest. He hasn't got enough reps since he's come back from injury. And from the games that he has had, he's had 2 great games scoring-wise and pretty much 4 bad ones. So I would avoid that. But look, if you're looking at historical form, he scored 30 points on them 3 out of 5 games. So if you think of he's capable of doing that, definitely have a play at it. DeMar DeRozan, let's have a look at him. So he's playing small power forward in this one. Looking at his assist prop, and that's because the Raptors allow the 7th most assist power forwards. How he's played against the Raptors tells me I would not play his over 4.5 assists because he's only covered in 1 of 6. And over his last 10, he's covered his 5 out of 10 games, averaging 4.6 assists per game. So there's nothing in the numbers that says, yes, go for it. Just because the matchup is good, there's nothing in the numbers that tell me that he could do it. He could finish on 4 or 5. I think the line is perfectly set. So, yeah, no real positive EV that I can say about DeMar DeRozan. And the last pick in this game is for Nikola Vucevic, and we're looking at his over in points. So I've backed the over in points a lot of times since the Raptors made that change and Jakob Poeltl got injured. So looking at Nikola Vucevic, he's covered over 18.5 points, 4 out of 10 games. The Raptors allow the 5th most points to centers, but surprisingly, he's only covered this in 1 of 6 games against the Raptors, and it's trending down. He seems to get worse every single time. So the matchup is good. Logically, if you think about it, the Raptors are quite small. But I took Kristaps Porzingis against the Raptors not too long ago. Took him for an over, and he fell under. So the Raptors know that they're giving up some size, especially with Jakob Poeltl out, so their defense changes. They're not allowing these big men to hold the ball for very long. So I honestly think, if I think about the script, this would probably be a better play to take Nikola Vucevic over in assists. We can see that he's done it very well against the Raptors in the past. Looking at his last 10, he's covered this 5 times. So it's really dependent on the matchup. Some teams are capable of defending him one-on-one, so they won't need to force any doubles. Some teams don't. But if I think about the script and how this game is played, I would prefer his assists. I wouldn't touch his points in this one. Jumping into the Oklahoma City Thunder versus Utah Jazz. Now, there's only one player that meets the criteria with a hard or easy matchup. But I'll also go through some other players of interest. But in terms of matchup, Josh Giddey. The Jazz allow the 5th least rebounds to shooting guards. The problem with that, Josh Giddey's form as of late is excellent. Look at that. 7 in his last 10, he's covered this line. His form against this team is brilliant. He's covered it in 5 straight games against the Utah Jazz, including them only matchup so far this year where he pulled down 10. So his form line tells me he's going to go over. The data in the matchups tells me this is a hard matchup for him to get rebounds. I wouldn't put too much stock into his form last year because you can see it here in his minutes played. In those first 4 games last year that he played, he played well over 30 minutes. He played 23 minutes against them earlier this year and got the 10 rebounds. Looking at so far this year, that seems to be his average. He's averaging almost 25 minutes per game. So you have to factor that in. It's not just about how he's performed against them historically. But some other players of interest that I wanted to talk through. Chet Holmgren, depending on the matchup he can be a great person to bet on. Rebounds, he's perfectly capable of getting 10, but look at this. He could easily get 3 to 4 rebounds. There's nothing that tells me he's going to go over this line or under it. So I'd honestly avoid any bet with Chet's rebound line. His points line is trending downwards. So is that a level of activity? What's happening there? So we can see his shot attempts are down, but we can also see his field goal percentage is down. So Chet, you could say, is in bad form right now, and he doesn't have the easiest matchup. So it's not to say that he's the game where he busts it wide open. Assist-wise, his assist numbers are going up, though. So look in his last 10, he's covered his line in 8 or 10 games. Assist numbers are definitely going up. He only had 2 assists against them earlier this year, but keeping in mind, he's a rookie, so it's going to take him a bit of time. He'll get better as the season goes. So if I was going to make any bet on Chet, it would only be on his assist prop. Rebounds are unpredictable, and his points, he's in bad form at the moment. Let's just say that. Another one is, let's look at SGA. He's usually what am I talking about? He's usually as consistent as it gets, but been on the road now for 3 games. He had the 2 road games against the Clippers and the Lakers, and he stunk 24 and 19 points. Still played a lot of minutes, but checked out his field goal percentage, 47% and 38%. His field goal attempts is 19 and 16. He's averaging 18 on the year. 3-point percentage, shocking. And if we have a look at his free throws, I think we'll see that even his free throw numbers are down. So yeah, his free throw numbers aren't. He averages 7.5 makes per game. He only made 5 against the Lakers and 7 against the Clippers. So overall, you can say it's only been 2 games, but SGA, pretty poor in both of those. Is he trending downwards? Are the Oklahoma City Thunder tired? Because that can happen with some of these younger teams. Are they starting to slide? Rebound-wise, sliding. Assist-wise, his assist line is just high. I wouldn't say he's sliding on this one, but it is high. So I think if you've watched OKC Thunder games recently, you'd say that Jalen Williams is really picking up the slack. So he's trending upwards. Check that out. SGA has been under-delivering, has been over-delivering. Doesn't have a good or a bad matchup in this one. So I would consider taking a play on Jalen Williams. Would need to dive a little bit further, but his points wise, they're looking good. Minutes still around his average. Field goal attempts. So he averages 13 field goal attempts on the season, but we can see in his last 3 games, he's gone over that. Field goal percentage is great. 65% is what he averages, which is pretty crazy. 3-point percentage, better than SGA's. So he's really getting into it there. If we look at his rebounds dipped in the last 2, but the OKC Thunder lost both of those games. And assist-wise, he's been pretty good. You want to catch him on the right day. 5.5, I think that's a bit too high for me. But at the same time, the Jazz do allow a lot of assists and a lot of points. But the Utah Jazz are a great rebounding team, so that's something to be aware of. Last one there. This one's a pretty, depending on what his line is for John Collins. Let me 12.5, right? So we can see that he's really capable of 15 to 19 points. He's averaging 13.8 points per game this year. We see the line down at 12.5. His last matchup against OKC, he scored 19. So John Collins could be one to look at. And we can't do a Jazz game without Lowry. And looking at Lowry's last 10, you could assume that he's trending upwards, which is good. 5 of his last 10, he's covered this line. Against OKC, he scored 43 and 20. So rebound-wise, 2 games of 10 rebounds against them. Assist-wise, doesn't pass the rock that much. Recent form, his rebound's been great. Over the last 6, he's been rebounding quite strongly. And you know that he's rebounded well against OKC in the past. So taking that in consideration, that doesn't mean I'd take him at 10. I might even bring that down to 8. We know the OKC Thunder are not a great rebounding team, so some definite opportunities there for Lowry. Jumping into the Memphis Grizzlies versus the Minnesota Timberwolves. This Memphis Grizzlies team is depleted AF. But quite a few players with good and bad matchups in this one. The first one's Luke Kennard, and we're looking at his rebounds and assists. The data indicates to take an under as the Wolves allow the 5th least rebounds and the 5th least assists to point guards. Luke Kennard is not a point guard, but they've got none left on their roster. So he really is a shooting guard who can shoot. Playing point guard in this game, and he did that in the last one. But yeah, definitely, look, I just wouldn't touch him, but he does have a difficult matchup. Another one is Jaren Jackson Jr., and we're looking at his under 7.5 rebounds and assists. The Wolves allow the 4th least rebounds and the 2nd least assists to power forwards. If I was going to play this, I would probably just play his rebounds line, the under on that. He's not a great rebounder in general, and he's up against Cat and Rudy Gobert. The assist line, I think, is more than capable of hitting it. He does have a very high usage rate given the volume of quality players that are missing. So these assists could just come naturally. It's not from him really creating. It's just that he's going to get so many opportunities and he'll pass that ball and people would potentially score off it. So, but the rebounds line, that's something I'd probably consider taking an under given the matchup. The line indicates it's going to be a blowout, but ridiculous things can happen. This Memphis team might hang with them. They did beat the Warriors after all. So, yeah, probably best to avoid him altogether. Xavier Tillman's got one of the hardest matchups in basketball when it comes to rebounds. Xavier Tillman is a 6'7" center, and he's up against Rudy Gobert. So the Wolves, they allow the 2nd fewest rebounds to center. His line is 5.5. He's hit this 10 times this year out of 28 games, averaging 4.8 rebounds. He's only hit it in 2 of his last 10. So head-to-head matchups, though, he has cleared this in 2 of his last 3. But they did match up earlier this year, and he only finished on 2 rebounds. Sticking with the under theme here is Anthony Edwards, believe it or not. And you'd be looking at under 25.5 points because the Grizzlies allow the 2nd least points to shooting guards. He's covered this in 2 of 6 games against the Grizzlies. In his last 10, he has been great. He's covered this 7 out of his last 10 games, averaging 26.5 points per game. But for me, when I think about the real good players, the star players, the matchup honestly doesn't matter too much because the great players will get theirs regardless of who's defending them and what the matchup looks like. They can get theirs. So I wouldn't fade Anthony Edwards here. Rebounds and assists, I potentially would, but his assist numbers have been out of this world lately. But somebody that I do like in this game is Karl Anthony Towns, and it's a over on his 21.5 point prop. So the Grizzlies allow 2nd most points to power forwards, regardless of Jaren Jackson Jr. being there. Jaren Jackson Jr. is an excellent help defender. On ball, he's average, just like a lot of others. So I feel like Cat's not going to have the hardest time scoring against him. He's covered this in 8 of his last 10 games. He's covered it in his last game against Memphis earlier this season. So I think there's a good chance. His recent form's great. He's shown that he can do it against a team. The matchup is good based off the last 15 games. Carl Anthony Towns. Strongly consider that. He's over. Or if you're interested in taking some parlays, maybe just play him for 20. The last one's Rudy Gobert. So we spoke about Xavier Tillman having a terrible matchup. Well, Rudy Gobert's got a great one. So the Memphis Grizzlies allow the third most rebounds to centers. Rudy Gobert has covered this line of 12.5 in 6 of his last 10 games. But check out his last 3 games, 17, 18, and 16 rebounds. His last game against the Memphis Grizzlies, which was this season, he had 20 rebounds. I might be thinking about a Rudy Gobert rebound ladder by the end of tonight. So haven't put the bet in for that, but it's something I'm strongly considering now that I've just done a quick look through the data. But Rudy's got a great matchup. Tillman's got an awful one. The data says Rudy's going to go hard today, but I do get suspicious when the line stays low. So when the sports books reduce that line, sometimes it worries me a bit. So 12.5, though, it's very achievable for Rudy, so something I'd strongly consider taking. Let's jump into the very last game before I get to my best bets. So it's the Indiana Pacers versus Sacramento Kings. Now, heaps of players are going game time decisions at the moment, most notably Tyrese Halliburton and Pascal Siakam. So there's no markers on the Indiana Pacers players available at the moment. So we're just looking at the players from the Kings, and the first one is De'Aaron Fox, and we're looking at under 38.5 points, rebounds, and assists. The Pacers over their last 15 allow the second fewest points, third fewest rebounds, and the third fewest assists to point guards. This 38.5 assist line, he didn't hit in their last matchup against the Pacers. In his last 10 games, he's only hit this 3 times. He's averaging 30.5 points, rebounds, and assists. He did cover it in his last 2 games, though, but that was against both Milwaukee and Phoenix, who don't defend guards very well. The Indiana Pacers do a much better job of that. So this is one that I'm strongly considering taking as well, the under. That 38.5 really means De'Aaron Fox has to fill up the stat sheet in many ways. And what we've seen as of late, that especially at home from the Kings, Keegan Murray can put it on, Malik Monk, Sabonis, like they have other scorers out there. De'Aaron Fox would have to score 30-plus points in order to cover this PRA. So I do like that under. I'll probably lock that in after this video, to be honest. But Harrison Barnes is the next one. You'd be looking at over 9.5 points. The reason being the Pacers allow the second most points to small forwards. Now, you're not going to see a consistent number out of a role player like Harrison Barnes. It's going to be dependent on matchups. And you can see if he does have a good matchup, he can easily explode. Of his last 10, he's covered 8.9 as an average. But check this out. Last 2 games against them, Indiana Pacers, he scored 22 and 23 points. So there could be a little bit of value there for old Harrison to get some buckets in this one. But where I think the value could be is this man, Keegan Murray. Now, Keegan Murray, the challenge in this one is, I say it all the time, the Indiana Pacers allow a lot of power forwards, yada, yada, yada. But now they've got Pascal Siakam, and that changes a lot of things. We don't know if he's going to game, but it honestly will change things moving forward. At the same time, Keegan Murray at home is an absolute beast. You can see, looking at his last 10, he's covered this 5 times. He hasn't covered it very well against the Pacers in the past. We can forgive him for that. That was his rookie season. But if we go look at his home games alone, we see a lot more green. So at home, he's averaging 20.5 points over his last 10 games and 19 points per game at home on the season. So if we're saying that the matchup is pretty good and this guy is a stud at home, definitely something to consider. But on the flip side to that, the Indiana Pacers do not allow 3-pointers. They allow the least 3-pointers made in this league. They run everybody off the line. So Keegan Murray's going to have to make a lot of layups if he's going to cover this line. So, yeah, it's an interesting one. Let me know what you guys think. The last one in this game, those Domantas Sabonis. So the Pacers, believe it or not, they allow the least points to centers. The least points to centers. But they also allow the most points in the paint, which is pretty crazy. So it's not about where they allow points or who they allow points to. It is how they allow points. So the Indiana Pacers are very susceptible to players who are going to drive to the rim. So someone like De'Aaron Fox could probably go off for 30 points, but we know that the Pacers defend point guards quite well. So that leaves me to think about Malik Monk. I feel like I'm not on Malik Monk at the moment, but I think this is the type of game where he can really excel. If Halliburton plays, there's going to be a lot of pace. There's going to be a lot of running. It's going to be up and down. The guards are going to be heavily involved in this one. Malik Monk can shoot the 3 ball. He can drive it. He can handle the rock. He can do all of those things. De'Aaron Fox is going to pick up. He's going to attract the primary defenders anyway. So someone like Malik Monk is someone who I'd be thinking of. Just because the Pacers allow the least points to centers doesn't mean I'd consider taking Sabonis under the 25, 21 and a half. It just means I won't take his over. So, but yeah, quite interesting. Really hopeful that Halliburton and Siakam do suit up tomorrow because I want to see how they work things out. Interesting, their timelines aren't really aligned. Siakam's pretty much within his prime, and Halliburton's not even close to starting his. But let's see how this trade goes and how it impacts the Pacers. Before we jump into my best bets, I want to give a shout out to Greg Edwards 4181 for his comment of the day. It's a massive comment. I'll put it up on the screen. I won't read it in full, but some of the things that you said, Greg, was another banger. You said that you love the fact that I do the high value singles on the ladders because that separates me from everybody else on YouTube, and I know that. It does involve a lot more risk, those ladder plays and the high value singles and the value multis. They involve a lot of risk, and that means my win-loss record is not going to be as good as others, but I don't give a shit about that because at the end of the day, you bet for fun, but you also bet to make profit, right? And if those riskier plays are going to generate me more profit than I would just playing singles, then I will keep playing them. They are more difficult to spot. You can't get them every single day. Well, you probably could, but I can't see them every day. But yeah, look, I'm glad that you've identified that it does separate me from everybody else. Something that you want to see more on is picks on based off what I've seen, not just about the matchups. And I agree. Before you make a pick, you can't just make a pick based on the matchup. The easiest thing for me to share when I'm giving insights, though, is the matchup, because if it's data driven, it's easy for me to locate, identify, and then share with everybody else. If I had to go through every game to talk about how teams play, what each player is going to do, shit, I'd be here for hours and hours and hours. I could only do that if I quit my job. But that is the way you should be making your bets, where you consider everything. You take the stats, you take the matchup, you take the schedule, you take how teams play, personal motivations from players, rotations, injuries. There's so many things that you need to take into consideration. But how a game is played and how teams play defense, that is a really important thing that you need to understand. So when you guys are watching a game, what I would really encourage you to do is not watch and look at the player that you're betting on, even though that's what, it's pretty exciting. Watch to see how the opposition plays defense. You're always going to be watching the offense anyway, because we can't help ourselves. We follow the ball. But watch to see how the other teams play defense, and you're going to start to notice trends, and you're going to start to notice patterns. And when you understand those patterns, you can use those to bet in future games. So you had a great example here, Greg, where you spoke about Embiid and how they defend pick and rolls and such. I know what you're referring to here is drop coverage is what that's called. So a lot of the teams in the NBA who have big centers, your Embiid, your Jokic's, your Zubac's, all these types of guys, they defend pick and rolls with a drop coverage, meaning the center, when there's a pick and roll, they'll drop towards the rim. There's no switching, there's no hedging, there's no blitzing. They simply drop back and everybody else is forced to work. What that does, it allows them to maintain a defensive presence inside. But that's a scheme. It's not laziness. Whereas if you watch a game like the Atlanta Hawks, for example, they blitz a lot of screens. And the reason what a blitz is when they send the guy defending the pick and roll and the guy defending the guy sending the screen, they both attack the ball handler and they force him to pass. And the reason why you do that is because if you're Trae Young and you switch on a screen, you're going to have a 6'10" center dragging you under the rim, and it's going to be a mismatch every single time. But if the center and Trae Young blitz the screen, it forces the point guard to pass. Everybody can rotate. You're less likely to have a massive disadvantage in that. But it's an excellent comment that you've posted because it really shows how intricate betting can be on players. So when you watch a game, check to see how the teams are playing and then see what you learn from that and implement it into your next bet. But that's a great call out there, Greg. And congrats to you for hitting on that Aaron Gordon play. Now let's jump into my best bets. I've got a few to share. There's a few others that I've already locked in that I don't have a write-up for or an analysis. So what I'm going to do is I'll obviously share them all in my Discord, but I'll also create a community post on YouTube for you guys to see. I think you just need to subscribe to the channel and then all those community posts will show up in your feed. So the first player that I like in this upcoming slate is Colin Sexton, and we're taking his over 19.5 points. I got that for $1.90. I believe that's minus 110, pretty much the standard odd that you get for a line. Now, Colin Sexton, he's played in all 42 games for the Jazz this season, and he's covered this line in only 17 games. That doesn't matter to me because his recent form since being promoted to the starting lineup has been arousing, covering in 7 of his last 10, averaging 20.8 points per game. What's amazing about his recent run and the great form that he's shown is that he does it all playing only 23 minutes per night, and he only takes 13 shots per game. His efficiency is what's driving the strong performances. He's shooting 53% from the field, 41% from deep. And then given he attacks the rim so often, it's pretty wild how well he scores in there, being only 6'1". Now, the key reason I love this bet, though, is Sexton's form against the Oklahoma City Thunder. So check this out. Sexton has played the OKC Thunder 7 times throughout his career. He's covered this line in 6 consecutive games, including their matchup earlier this season. The Thunder are a better team. Let's not get that confused. But they're in a flat spot at the moment. They dropped both games in LA, and they're on the road once again in Utah. Utah are the hottest team in the league at the moment. They've gone 8-1 this calendar year. They beat a lot of good teams. They could add another one to their list, but I do see this game being a close one. And if it is close, Sexton will play his full complement of 25 to 30 minutes. If he stays aggressive and he gets 13 to 15 shots off, I can see him cashing this over once again. So let's go, Colin. My next bet is for Vince Williams Jr. from the Memphis Grizzlies, and I'm taking his over 18.5 points and rebounds. Now, a lot of people watching this may not even know who Vince Williams is, but he's one of the most exciting players. He's not the most exciting. He's someone I'm so excited to watch tomorrow, purely because his line is so low based on what he's capable of achieving. So he's a 6'4" guard. He's playing small forward, and his main calling card this whole season has been his defensive intensity. Now, given the Grizzlies have had so many injuries, Morant, Adams, Bane, Rose, Smart, and much more, they have no one to create on offense. So it's a very small sample size, but he's played 2 games without the stars in the lineup. And out of all the Grizzlies players, he has shined the brightest out of all of them. So over his last 2 games, he's tallied the following stat lines: 24 points, 7 rebounds, and 4 assists against the Warriors, 17 points, 8 rebounds, and 8 assists against the Knicks. So his points and rebounds line in those games were 18.5 and 17.5. So it's moved up slightly, but he's averaging 28 points and rebounds over those 2 games. So he's not overly talented in his skill set at this point in his career, but his work ethic and effort within the game is leading to opportunities. I did watch some film, I watched some tape to see what the hell is this guy doing to rack up all these stats. And what I saw in every single play is that he's aggressive getting to the rim. He runs the floor every time. He's great defensively, so he can get some steals and he's on the transition. He can make open threes. He's also not afraid to take them either. So, look, I'm that aroused by his recent play. I'm willing to throw 1 unit on this value play for Vince Williams. I'm going to take him for over 17.5 points, over 6.5 rebounds, and over 2.5 assists. I got that for $8.50, which is plus $7.50 for those in the US. I've gone safer in his assist line. His assist line's 3.5, but I'm taking the over 2.5. Gone a bit safer purely because the Wolves do a great job limiting new assists to most positions on the floor. But at the same time, given his work rate, his effort, I think he's going to get the opportunities. They've got no one to create. They've got Luke Kennard as their starting point guard. Jaren Jackson is the best player that they have on the floor. I think they're going to find it difficult, and that's where people like Vince Williams Jr. are going to shine. So let's take him and let's go. So that's the best bets, but we are not done. We still have a recap to go through on yesterday. We were slightly profitable, but I'll tell you how much it was. We're 0.07 units in the profit, so nothing amazing. But let me jump into this, share my screen, and I'll take you through the day that was. All right, I shared picks for 3 different players in the last video. The first one was Brandon Ingram. Took his under 18.5 points and a value play for him to go well under, get rebounds and assists. He got a triple-double, I believe, today. Absolutely killed it. I was so close to just backing his assists, but I wanted to talk about his points form, his shit percentage, his lack of aggressiveness. And I said that if he does happen to explode, and this is the game where he goes over, look, I'd be happy to take the L. So took the L on that one, took a risk, and I was just basing it on recent form and stats, and he busted it wide open. So fair enough. The historical form always wins. So took the L on Brandon Ingram. Austin Reeves, who got done on the hook here, finished on 14 points. It was close to a plus money play, but 14 points for Austin Reeves. That was a bit heartbreaking for us, but thankfully in that same game, we managed to hit the Anthony Davis assist ladder. We got him for 4, 5, 6, and 7. And that pretty much made up for all the losses that we had with all the other players. I finished on 9 assists. I think 8 assists was like $13 to $14. Spewing, I didn't take it that high, but I was very trying to manage risk here, and I didn't want to bet more than 2 units overall on Anthony Davis. So bit of a rough one, but look, great pick. Hopefully we can hit more ladders like this moving forward. But pretty much where that takes us on the season is 61.4 units profit, 12.9% return. A quick jump into the analyzer, and we'll have a look at how things are going. So those single player props are only 6.9 units ahead. A lot of people do single player props better than me. I'm not gonna lie. And where I really make that difference is in these value plays. So in the single value multis, we're hitting them at 24%. We're almost 52 units profit. So hopefully Vince can deliver for us today. And high value singles. So I've started to put more and more of those as the season progresses. And from 12 bets, we're almost up to 13 units on those high value singles. Keeping in mind the staking does change. The max I'll ever play on one of these high value plays is 1 unit. Sometimes it's half, sometimes it's 0.25, but I'll make an effort to make sure I call those out in the video. But look, gang, that's a wrap on today's video. I hope you loved it. All the detail, insights, and analysis. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. I'll see you guys in the next one. Here's your favorite song. Best of luck to us. Peace.
Sub to the channel cause your boy's getting busy. Coming to you live from the west side of Sydney. We've got the free picks and the juice on the daily. It's all free, you don't even have to pay me.